Video games. Video games? What is video games? Am I a video? I can't do that. Yeah, with champion making. So I quite liked in the last video just the little informal chat, the sort of Scott the Was style video. So I thought I'd just do that again. This time just talking about some of the more interesting pieces, or what I think are the more interesting pieces of my collection. And I provided my own in-house audience, little amiibo figures. Link is a bit standoffish there, but I suppose, you know, Ganondorf is on the other side. And speaking of Zelda, top segue, the very first piece in my collection, I think, I mean, I'd consider it basically an antique at this point. This is the Zelda 2 Game & Watch. This was the penultimate one, the one just before the final release. It's older than me. It was made in 1989, which is just crazy to me. Fortunately, it's more of just the battle system than anything else, so it feels a bit more like Castlevania than Zelda because of the sort of like tiered system you can kind of see there. So enemies just basically kind of infinitely respawn, you just see how long you can fight them off for. I would provide you some gameplay, but one of the problems this has is that it doesn't have an on-off switch, so the only solution is to take the batteries out, and then when you take the batteries out, you lose them. So the next time I can play this is whenever I get some more of those button batteries. I will say it's pretty fun, and it's definitely quite complex for a Game & Watch game. Which, again, if I hadn't just clasped this shut and it being very difficult to open, you can see there's quite a lot going on there. Yeah, and obviously a big Zelda fanboy, so this is, for me, a bit of a treasure. I'll just pop that on the side there. The next one I want to talk about, people probably know quite a lot about this one. So this is Pokemon Pinball, and this was for the, jeez, I can't remember if it was Game Boy or Game Boy Color. Probably Game Boy Color, given the shape it was from this year. I can't remember if that means Game Boy or not. The reason I think that this is really, really cool is, as far as I'm aware, it was the very first use or design of the rumble feature. That's why this battery is in here. And you saw this quite a lot with handhelds, where the system itself didn't have a feature, and so it was like hard, what's it, like hard program, but like hard manufactured into the product itself. So with the GBA, you know, there was things to do. There was gyroscopes, and there were light sensors, and all that kind of stuff. And it all, again, it all kind of started, as far as I can tell, with this rumble feature from Pokemon Pinball. And I just think that's a really good example of, again, we talk so much about what's the value of physical media. Well, if it's digital, these are sort of innovations that could never happen if we didn't have physical versions. Speaking of the game itself, the game is fantastic. Obviously, it's a bit of a cult classic. It had a sequel on the GBA, but the thing that's crazy is the series stopped there, and obviously the GBA one didn't do as well. No one really seemed to know about it. I was surprised when I found out about it only a couple of years ago. But the thing that's crazy about it is that it stopped at the DS. Now, if you remember this game, you remember that it had essentially two screens, one up and one down, and as the ball went up and down, it would just transition between them. It's like, the DS would have been the optimal physical design for that game, and I just find that so bizarre that they didn't even give it like a roll of the dice to give Pokemon Pinball. Like if the sequel, the Ruby and Sapphire sequel, sold so badly, I find it crazy that they didn't just do a Hail Mary with the DS, given the synergy of the design there. Speaking of the DS, this is I think a particularly cool periphery. So this is, I mean, you can read for yourself probably, the Guitar Hero periphery for the DS. I think it's just the DS, not 3DS. It plugs into the GBA port, so I think it was Lights that didn't have a GBA port, so obviously you couldn't play it on that, but for early models of the DS, you just plugged it in, and it's only got the 4 buttons, but I guess that's fine. With the strap that you can't really move from side to side, so it's a bit simpler. That being said, it is a bit more challenging in terms of the picking. So it also came with this like little pick stylus, and that's pretty cool. But I don't know, the motion just wasn't quite right with it, or I didn't read the input quite well enough. Like, I don't know, it was one of those things where like intuitively you just got a bit better at it, and also the particular designs of the songs, I don't know if it's just me, but it almost kind of like enforced the need for alternate picking, rather than just doing down strums the whole time. But yeah, it wasn't the perfect periphery, but I think it is a really interesting one, and it's one that surprisingly people don't seem to know too much about. It didn't do too well. It got 2 games, I think maybe a 3rd. I'm not 100% sure. Which again, during Guitar Hero in its heyday, is not the huge success that it's accustomed to, or was accustomed to. But again, I think that this is actually just a really neat little periphery, and I'd recommend picking it up if you can. It is fun, and yeah, hopefully, I kind of want Guitar Hero to come back a little bit, but that might just be me. So this next one is a very, very cool PS3 game, I think, called The Eye of Judgment. And what this was a TCG, and I feel really bad for this, because this was a really interesting, well-designed product. I know a thing or two about TCGs, and unfortunately the market has been dominated by 2 or 3 brands in particular. Well, not even brands. Yeah, brands. Basically all wizards, but yeah, brands in terms of like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Obviously, you know, a couple of new ones come out every year, and they're really lazy, shoddy, just IP, just money pits. This was just a game that seemed to be made in all sincerity. Basically, you had the cards can be scanned by the EyeToy. Can I open this easily? Oh, I remember this opening up a different one. Do you know what, that's not coming out. Alright, great. That's not how I meant things to go, because I put it upside down. But basically, you had this mat, you popped the cards on it, and then it came with an EyeToy as well. And on the cards, there would be things to scan. And I'm honestly kind of impressed myself with my dexterity here, although I shouldn't say that at a time where I fumbled. So, let's just see if we can get a card here. So it would be able to scan these cards, and what it would do is the cards would sort of like show up on screen almost aping, in a sense, the style of how the Yu-Gi-Oh! TV show used to work, where they would play a card into their dual disc, or their dual, what did they call it before it was a dual disc, just whatever thing was on their arm. And yeah, then like a hologram of the monster would just appear. And this pretty much did the same kind of thing. But obviously up on the TV. So this just failed, and I think obviously because, you know, TCGs, they are money makers, they are money spinners, but kind of from Wales, and so if you don't manage to make it into the zeitgeist, then it flops, and that's really unfortunate, because again, I think this game really was trying to do something very cool. And I think that it was doing it in all sincerity. And I do kind of think as well, just speaking for the future, if these guys were to try again, VR, I don't know, that's just kind of what I think. Because a lot of the VR games that I've seen do seem to just pretty much be aping the same kind of game designs, either puzzles or shooters, and obviously the shooters don't really work that well yet. And games like, you know, Inscription and Slay the Spire show that there still is a thirst for digital TCGs out there, so I don't know. By judgment, it was a very cool flop, look into it, and yeah, that's that. And then the final one I want to wrap up on here is another flop, another bit of a failure, and I think what a shame this is, what a tragedy. Because this is from Starlink Battle for Atlas, and this was a Ubisoft game, and obviously not the biggest Ubisoft fanboy here, but what this did was it used the NFC technology that Skylanders and Lego Dimensions and Disney, yada yada yada, all that kind of stuff did, but rather than them all just kind of aping each other, this actually innovated in some way. And so basically you had different captains inside you could put in. You built a ship around them, so like the wings come off. Build quality is a bit too strong for me to, I don't want to risk breaking it. But the wings do come off, these weaponry come off, and it's all reflected on screen in game. Like you could actively even like take this off in game, and it would, the thing would just disappear off your wing. If you try to add stuff on, I think it paused the game for some reason. But yeah, this was a bit of a shame, because again we saw someone roll the dice here, actually do something that was really cool and really innovative with the technology, and really strongly impacted the gameplay. And in the end, it just didn't pay off, just because the market was wrong at the wrong time. Kind of same with Eye of Judgment there. That's a real shame. I think they should try again. I mean, I don't think it'd work if they try again, but I don't know, I just think it was generally good. I mean, the thing I'm always asked whenever I talk about this with friends, or they see it, is how is this as a controller? Because it seems obviously very unwieldy. It's not too bad, if I'm honest. You kind of don't even really notice it when you're playing. It is a bit of a problem if you do want to swap out parts, because you kind of just have to pop them on the side, and then there's a risk of sort of losing them, or I don't know, if you live in a different household, like maybe a small child coming and eating them or something. But no, they just the Wiimotes just sort of slot in, and then it just works like your usual grip, as you can kind of see, but just with this cool little R-wing statue on top. And there were other chips and stuff, obviously, but again, this was a particular perk, I think, of getting it on the Switch, was you got a nice little R-wing figure out of it. So yeah, pretty cool little deal there. So that's it. I've got a mess to clean up now, but yeah, let me know what you think of any of this pile of rubbish and let me know whatever things you've got that you're particularly proud of. Yeah, see ya.